July 5, 1943. 3:17 a.m. south of Ural, along the northern shoulder of the Kursk salient. The horizon flashes white. Not lightning, artillery. Thousands of guns firing in synchronized fury, the ground trembling beneath boots and tank tracks. German Panzer crews jerk awake inside steel hulls slick with condensation. Diesel fumes mix with cordite drifting through open hatches. The air tastes metallic. Inside a Panzer IV, Oberleutnant Karl-Heinz Richter checks his watch by red lamp. Operation Citadel has begun. The greatest armored offensive in history is finally rolling forward. He has been told this will be decisive. One massive pincer from the north, another from the south. Smash the Red Army at Kursk, collapse the salient, reclaim the initiative on the Eastern Front. Clean, surgical, inevitable. Richter believes it, most of them do. They've been told the Soviet T-34 is crude, poor optics, sloppy welds, inferior training, barbaric simplicity compared to German engineering. Yes, it had surprised them in 1941. But now the Wehrmacht fields the Panzer IV with long-barreled 75 mm guns. The new Panther tanks are arriving. Tigers prowl with their feared 88 mm cannons. The Russians, they say, will break. Engines roar to life across the steppe. The smell of fuel thickens. Steel columns begin to move through the early morning haze, tracks grinding against dry earth. Dust rises like fog around the advancing spearhead of Generaloberst Walter Model's Ninth Army. Then the ground explodes. Soviet artillery answers with a deafening wall of fire. Shells slam into the fields ahead, tearing open black soil and bodies alike. The Red Army had known. They had known the exact hour. In Richter's headset, radio chatter turns sharp, clipped. Minefields ahead. Engine down. We're taking fire from the tree line. The German advance slows before it truly begins. You can almost feel it, the shift, that tiny crack in certainty. By mid-morning, the first T-34s appear. Low silhouettes cresting ridgelines, fast, unhesitating. Richter squints through his optics. The shape is unmistakable, sharply angled glacis plate, wide tracks gripping soft earth, turret turning with mechanical calm. The 76.2 mm gun flashes. A Panzer III to his left erupts in flame. He swallows. That was a frontal hit. Return fire. The long 75 embarks. Smoke fills the turret. Through the haze he watches the Soviet tank stagger, then continue moving. The sloped armor has deflected part of the impact. It angles death away. Crude. Another T-34 surges forward, bouncing over terrain that would bog down narrower German tracks. Soviet drivers push through churned mud and shell craters with relentless momentum. No elegance, no finesse, just mass and motion. German officers had once laughed at the finish of Soviet welds, at the lack of polish, at the rough casting of turrets. They called them Asiatic machines. But here, under fire, refinement means nothing. What matters is that the T-34 keeps coming. By afternoon, the fields north of Kursk are a graveyard of metal. Tigers from Schwer Panzerabteilung 505 score kills at long range, their 88 mm guns punching through Soviet armor like paper. Yet for every T-34 destroyed, more roll forward. Factories beyond the Urals are feeding this battlefield without pause. This is not a duel, it is an avalanche. Richter watches a Panther ahead of him lurch to a halt, smoke pouring from its engine deck. Mechanical failure. Brand new, rushed into combat. The crew scrambles out under machine gun fire. The T-34 does not hesitate. Its turret rotates smoothly. One shot, the Panther becomes a torch. Arrogance begins to erode. By nightfall, the Germans have advanced only a handful of kilometers. The cost is higher than predicted. Minefields, anti-tank guns, endless defensive belts layered in depth. And always the T-34. In his command post, General Model studies situation maps under dim lamplight. He sees what others refuse to say aloud. The Red Army has transformed since 1941. This is not the disorganized force that reeled back toward Moscow. This is something else. Outside, recovery teams drag damaged panzers from smoking fields. Wounded men cry out in the darkness. Somewhere beyond the lines, Soviet engines idle, waiting for dawn. The Germans had mocked the T-34 as crude. But tonight, many of them lie awake replaying the same image, that sloped armor shrugging off a perfect shot. And tomorrow, they will drive forward again, into something far larger than they imagined. Dawn breaks heavy and humid over the Kursk salient. July 6, 1943, 5:40 a.m. Mist clings low to the wheat fields, wrapping burned-out hulls in a ghostly shroud. The battlefield smells of oil, scorched rubber, and something far worse. Flies gather where medics work through the night. Engines ignite again. In the southern sector, General Hermann Hoth's 4th Panzer Army surges forward toward Prokhorovka. The elite II SS Panzer Corps, Leibstandarte des Reich, Totenkopf, leads the assault. Their Tigers and Panzer IVs advance in tight formations, confident in superior optics and long-range gunnery. Across the lines, Soviet tank crews sit cramped inside their T-34s, hands wrapped around worn steel levers. Many are barely 20. They have trained for this moment in dust-choked proving grounds east of the Urals. They know the odds. They also know something else. There are more of them. The steppe begins to shake. When contact comes, it is sudden and violent. No elegant maneuver warfare. No sweeping flanks, just collision. At Prokhorovka on July 12, 1943, the largest tank engagement in history detonates at point-blank range. Nearly 800 Soviet tanks surge toward roughly 300 German armored vehicles. The distance between them collapses in seconds. You can almost hear it, the rising scream of engines pushed beyond design limits. SS Hauptsturmführer Michael Wittmann peers through the sight of his Tiger's 88mm gun. He fires at 1,000 meters. A T-34 bursts apart before it can close the distance. Another round, another kill. But then the Soviets do something unexpected. They keep coming straight at him. At 200 meters, the advantage of German long-range accuracy shrinks to nothing. T weave through smoke and dust, deliberately closing the gap to neutralize the Tiger's precision optics. Soviet doctrine favors aggression over caution. Ram if necessary, fire on the move, disrupt. One T-34 crashes into a German anti-tank gun position, crushing it beneath its tracks even as shells rip through its side armor. Flames burst from the turret, but momentum carries the burning machine forward another 20 meters before it stops. It is chaos, absolute chaos. Visibility drops to near zero as dust clouds rise from hundreds of churning tracks. Crews fire at silhouettes. Friend and foe blur together. Collisions are common. Turrets jam. Guns overheat. Inside a German Panther, a gunner curses as his optics fog. A T-34 appears suddenly through the smoke, less than 100 meters away. The Soviet gun fires first. The shell strikes the Panther's angled glacis, fails to penetrate, but the concussion stuns the crew. Seconds later, another T-34 flanks from the side. This one finds thinner armor. The Panther erupts. German reports later describe the battlefield as like a steel hurricane, but in the moment it feels smaller, suffocating. The T-34's strengths reveal themselves brutally here. Wide tracks grip the soft ground. Sloped armor deflects glancing blows. Simpler mechanical systems mean fewer breakdowns under strain. While German Panthers suffer engine fires and transmission failures, Soviet tanks continue forward with rough reliability. Crude weld seams do not matter when your tank still moves. And move they do. Soviet commander General Pavd Rutmustrov commits wave after wave of armor into the fray. His orders are clear: close with the enemy, turn long-range duels into knife fights, overwhelm them with proximity. The ground becomes impassable. Burning hulls create barriers. Tanks maneuver between carcasses of steel. Some crews fire until ammunition is gone, then withdraw under covering smoke. Others never withdraw at all. By midday, the temperature inside the tanks is unbearable. Sweat blinds gunners. Shell casings litter turret floors. Radios crackle with desperate calls for coordination that no one can fully provide. And yet something is shifting. German officers begin to notice that the Red Army is not collapsing under losses. Instead, fresh formations appear. Reserves roll in from concealed ravines and reverse slopes. Soviet logistics, once ridiculed, now function with relentless efficiency. Factories relocated beyond the Ural Mountains have been producing T-34s at astonishing speed. Entire tank brigades arrive equipped and ready. Where Germany builds precision, the Soviet Union builds volume. The math is becoming impossible. By evening, the battlefield near Prokhorovka is littered with twisted armor. Both sides claim victory. Both sides bleed heavily. But strategically, the German advance has stalled. Operation Citadel was meant to restore initiative to the Wehrmacht. Instead, momentum is slipping. In a field headquarters miles away, reports reach Field Marshal Erich von Manstein. The SS divisions have fought ferociously. Tactical successes are real, but the breakthrough, the clean rupture of Soviet lines, has not materialized. And now, intelligence whispers of something worse. To the north, Soviet counteroffensives are forming. The hunters may be about to become the hunted. July 13, 1943, Field Headquarters, Army Group South. The air inside the command bunker is thick with cigarette smoke and frustration. Maps of the Kursk salient are spread across a long wooden table, corners weighed down with pistols and spent shell casings. Red grease pencil arrows show the German advance. They do not reach far enough. Field Marshal Erich von Manstein stands motionless, gloves tucked beneath one arm. He listens as reports are read aloud: fuel shortages, mounting losses, Soviet reserves appearing where none were expected. The breakthrough has not happened. It was supposed to be swift: encircle the salient, annihilate the Red Army formations inside it, restore German dominance in the east. That was the plan. Instead, the T-34 keeps appearing. Not in dozens, in hundreds. In the northern sector, General Walter Model's 9th Army is exhausted. Minefields slowed them to a crawl. Soviet anti-tank guns have been dug in so deeply that entire batteries must be overrun at close range. Every kilometer gained costs armor that cannot easily be replaced. The Red Army is not retreating. It is absorbing and preparing. On July 12, even as Prokhorovka raged, the Soviets launched Operation Citadel against the German-held Ural salient in the north. Fresh armies, fresh tanks. The counterstroke is massive. German intelligence had underestimated Soviet reserves. Again. Inside the bunker, a staff officer traces Soviet arrows advancing westward. The implication is clear. If Citadel continues, German forces risk being encircled themselves. Manstein argues for persistence. He believes the southern sector can still achieve operational success. He believes elite formations like the SS Panzer Corps can force a breakthrough with just a little more time. But Berlin has begun to hesitate. On July 13th, Adolf Hitler summons his commanders to the Wolf's Lair. News has arrived of an Allied landing in Sicily. The Mediterranean now burns. Resources are stretched thin across continents. Hitler wavers. Citadel, the long-prepared offensive meant to regain the initiative in the east, begins to unravel not only on the battlefield, but politically. Meanwhile, on the steppe, the T-34 does what it was built to do: advance. Soviet tank crews push forward in counteroffensives that feel relentless. Their tactics have evolved. Coordination between infantry, artillery, and armor is sharper. Radio discipline improves. Lessons learned in blood at Moscow and Stalingrad are now embedded in doctrine. A German Panther commander watches through binoculars as a column of T-34s crests a ridge at dusk. He counts quickly: 10, 20, 30. He stops counting. The psychological edge, once firmly German, begins to tilt. German tankers had taken pride in superior optics, superior range, superior engineering, and in many individual engagements, those advantages still exist. A Tiger at long range remains deadly. But war is not decided in isolated duels. It is decided in depth. In factories running day and night, beyond the reach of Luftwaffe bombers. In rail lines stretching eastward to industrial cities like Chelyabinsk and Magnitogorsk, where entire plants were dismantled in 1941 and rebuilt in months. In assembly lines producing thousands of T-34s with ruthless efficiency. The Soviets have simplified production: cast turrets, streamlined welding, standardized components, fewer luxuries, more output. Crude, perhaps, but unstoppable. By mid-July, German armored divisions report alarming mechanical attrition. Panthers suffer transmission failures. Tigers require constant maintenance. Spare parts arrive slowly across overstretched supply routes. The T-34, by contrast, thrives in harsh conditions. Its wide tracks handle mud and dust. Its diesel engine reduces fire risk compared to gasoline-powered German tanks. Crews adapt quickly because the design is forgiving. A German officer writes in his diary, "They come on like a tide. We destroy 10 and 20 take their place." The realization settles like a weight. This is no longer about tactical brilliance. It is about industrial endurance. On July 16th, Hitler officially calls off Operation Citadel. The offensive that was meant to cripple the Red Army ends without achieving its objective. German forces begin to withdraw under mounting Soviet pressure. For the first time on the Eastern Front, the Wehrmacht has launched a major summer offensive and failed decisively. And the T-34 was at the center of it. But the true consequence is only beginning to unfold. Because now, the Red Army does not merely defend. Now it advances west. Relentlessly. Late July 1943. The dust has not yet settled at Kursk, but the direction of the war has changed. The steppe that once shook beneath German tracks now trembles under Soviet momentum. South of Ural, battered Panzer divisions withdraw in fighting retreat. Mechanics work frantically beside rail lines, cannibalizing wrecked Panthers for spare parts. Tigers with cracked gearboxes sit immobilized, their crews ordered to destroy them before falling back. Across the front, Red Army formations surge forward. This is no reckless charge, not anymore. Artillery preparation, infantry screening, armor advancing in depth. The Red Army that reeled in 1941 has become something disciplined, something methodical. Soviet commanders coordinate massive fronts with growing precision. And at the heart of it all, the T-34. Columns of them stretch across the horizon, turrets forward, engines growling, dust plumes rising like storm clouds behind them. You can almost feel the vibration through the ground as hundreds move at once. German rear guards brace along defensive lines hastily prepared. Anti-tank guns dig in along tree lines. Panzerfaust teams wait in shallow trenches. They still believe they can hold, that German tactical skill will compensate for material imbalance. But the imbalance grows by the week. Soviet factories are now producing over 1,000 T-34s per month. Assembly lines function with brutal efficiency. Workers, many of them women and teenagers, labor in 12-hour shifts beneath banners demanding victory. Tanks roll straight from factory floor to rail car. Precision is sacrificed for speed. And speed is winning. In August 1943, Operation Rumyantsev smashes toward Kharkov. German divisions counterattack fiercely, and for a brief moment the city changes hands again. But the momentum never truly shifts back. Each time the Wehrmacht stabilizes a line, another wave of Soviet armor appears. German officers begin to speak openly of exhaustion. Veteran tank commanders who once felt invincible now calculate survival in days rather than campaigns. The myth of unbreakable German armored superiority, forged in Poland and France, has fractured irreparably. At divisional headquarters, casualty lists lengthen. Replacement crews lack experience. Fuel shortages bite deeper. Luftwaffe support is inconsistent. Allied bombing campaigns in the West strain production. Meanwhile, the T-34 evolves. The introduction of the T-34-85, with its larger turret and more powerful 85mm gun, looms on the horizon. German tankers hear rumors of it before they ever see one. A bigger gun, better armor penetration. The crude machine is learning. By autumn, Soviet armored spearheads punch through defensive belts that would have held firm 2 years earlier. River crossings are forced under fire. Pontoon bridges thrown across the Dnieper while artillery rages overhead. A German captain watches through field glasses as T-34s crest a ridge near Kiev. They move in coordinated waves, infantry riding on engine decks, rifles slung across their backs. He lowers the binoculars slowly. There are too many. The realization that began at Kursk now becomes doctrine within the Wehrmacht. They cannot outproduce the Soviet Union. They cannot absorb losses at the same rate. Every destroyed Panther matters. Every lost Tiger is irreplaceable. But every destroyed T-34. Another will come. From arrogance to alarm. From alarm to resignation. By late 1943, the Eastern Front is no longer a pendulum. It is a conveyor belt moving westward. The Red Army drives through Smolensk, toward the Dnieper, toward the borders of pre-war Poland. And always the silhouette leads the way, low, sloped, unmistakable. German soldiers who once mocked rough welds now dig deeper trenches at the mere rumor of approaching T-34s. The sound of its diesel engine carries a psychological weight heavier than its armor. Because it represents something larger than steel. It represents industrial will. It represents adaptation. It represents a nation that learned from catastrophe and rebuilt itself behind the Urals into a machine of relentless output. Kursk was not the bloodiest battle of the war. It was not even the final turning point. But it was the moment the illusion shattered. The Wehrmacht had gambled on one decisive blow. Instead, they awakened an avalanche. And once it began rolling, nothing on the Eastern Front would ever truly stop it again. End